Hello and welcome to the review for Transformers Beast Wars Neo Killer Punch. Killer Punch is a retool of another Beast Wars Neo character named Guiledart. His mold was released in the United States under the Beast Machine's Dinobot subline as Triceradon. However, those two share a mold that differs slightly from this one, and we'll get into that a little bit later. In his alt mode, Killer Punch is a purple and turquoise Triceratops. He has some excellent molding all over his body. However, he is incredibly lacking in articulation. He has ball joints in his front arms, and very limited movement in his back legs due to transformation. However, you can get some decent laying down poses if you so choose. That said, you're not going to be posing him very much. But luckily enough, he looks pretty awesome, so you shouldn't need to. To transform him, the first thing I like to do will also get us into one of the first big differences between this mold and the original two uses of the mold. This mold has a firing head. That actually shoots pretty far. Keep in mind this is a Japanese toy, so it actually has some force in there. When you shoot his head off, it reveals this secondary mechanized monster head that also has a nice Predacon symbol. The original use of this mold did not have this feature. This was actually all one big part, and it had a different gimmick where if you pushed his tongue, his eyes rolled back into his head. So you can see perhaps why I chose to go with this figure instead, as this is a much cooler gimmick. And it also gives you a couple different options for the robot mode, which the original does not give you. You don't have to deal with a giant Triceratops head hanging off of the side of your figure, which is a nice option. So, to transform Killer Punch, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the tail section. Now this is the second and last difference between this mold and the other two. On the original mold, the tail removed and became a gun with a firing missile. And on this mold, it becomes a handheld blade weapon. The first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect this part from the body. It's held in place by two tabs on either side of this, which clip into this back part. So what you're going to want to do is just apply moderate pressure to one side, and once that's free, the other one will be clear. You can get these arms out of the way and spread this chest piece. And these flaps will actually flap down. You'll notice here that there's a little bit of some dino ribs and some muscly bits showing through. All of the Beast Wars Neo Predacons have what is called a trap mode, wherein they pretend to be dead or pretend to be some kind of flower or numerous different gimmicks, assumably in an attempt to lure Maximals close to them so that they can spring and attack. I'm going to skip over that mode entirely because they're utterly ridiculous. There's one single dinosaur in this line that I will likely show off just because of how utterly ridiculous it is. It's worth seeing. But this particular figure, it's really just you lay him down and peel open his sides and it looks like he's got some guts hanging out. It's nothing too spectacular. So continue to fold these around, and at this point you can actually pull up on the tail, which will release a clip from the back. And it will allow this entire back part to become free. So you can continue to rotate these up just to get them out of the way, and the entire back part will swing up. At the same time, you can move the arm up and move the tail out of your way. You can then move on to collapse these two bits, and they will form the crotch bit. Then you can peel out these legs and form the feet. And rotate these down around here. You can also bend this a little bit just to get it out of your way again, because you're going to need to take this entire top part of the torso at the chest and rotate it around. Now you're going to want to just do some straightening up here. And then you can bring this entire back part all the way up as far as it will go. And these two side panels will loosely form around it. Straighten out this shoulder bit. And inside each of these legs, there's a little missile cannon. And you can rotate those out. His sword will connect into his hand. And you can either place this dinosaur head back onto his arm, as it was in the original mold, or, as a secondary option, you can keep the monster hand out and attach this to a small hole using this peg to his back, which gives him an interesting silhouette. And this is usually how I will display this figure. And here you have Killer Punch in his robot mode, with a whole ton of dino kibble behind him. As is the case with a vast majority of the Japanese Beast Wars figures, this one is very kibbly. He has giant dinosaur parts as limbs. He's got 5 different dinosaur kibble bits attached to his back. And in reality, his weapon also has a giant dinosaur tail attached to it. As I usually say, I don't actually care. There are figures in which kibble bothers me. I'm blanking at the moment, but I know they're out there. This is not one of them. This is one of those figures that I think actually used the kibble in at least a relatively effective manner. This is definitely something right here that could do to be smaller. The fact that he has a piece of arm kibble that is almost as long as his entire body is a little bit ridiculous, but it also fits for his character. He's a very stout figure, and for some reason I get kind of a gladiatorial vibe from him, so having a whole bunch of dino armor on him doesn't seem entirely crazy to me. Again, it's not going to be for everyone. This isn't going to be a figure that everyone is gushing over. I'm sure there will be a lot of people who think it's butt ugly, and I wouldn't necessarily think they're wrong. I just don't feel that way. I appreciate him for what he is. I think he has an interesting transformation that I haven't seen in a lot of other Beast formers. And I think it's definitely worth picking up. The thing to note about this figure, however, is that since he is a retooling, and I'm not even sure if he appeared in Beast Wars Neo the show, so he might just be a toy-only retooling. He is incredibly rare and incredibly expensive. I decided to spring for him over the other two because of the whole head gimmick and the fact that I like his robot mode a lot more without the giant Triceratops head hanging off of him. I also am a big fan of purple things and Decepticons and Predacons, and he is the only version of this mold that is not a goody-goody. So I sprung for that. If you like this mold and you're not dead set on this situation right here and the blade, you can pick this up relatively cheap. This isn't going to be something you have to track down or try to find on eBay or anything like that. If you are interested in this particular use of the mold, you're probably looking for at least 60 to 70, if not more, depending on how much the scalpers are looking to get from you on any particular week. I would still recommend him. I think he's a better use of the mold than the other two, but it's not enough of a difference. I have seen the other molds, I just don't own them. It's not enough of a difference that I would say if you're not that worried about the arm situation that you should spend 20, 30, 40 extra dollars. You can pick up the Walmart version of this, or the standard US release, or even the original Japanese Guiledart use of the mode for a substantially lower price than this is going to run you. Alrighty, so in terms of articulation, he has a fully rotating head, which is wonderful. It's one of the only non-hampered articulation points on his body. His arm is on a ball joint, and is on several different joints. However, as you can see here, you're going to be smashing into all types of plastic every time you move this. And anytime you're going to try to raise this arm past this point right here, you're going to be moving the entire shoulder assembly up, which looks incredibly unnatural. So for the most part, this is as much arm articulation as you're going to be getting. Not superb, but enough for some cool, intimidating battle poses, so it could be much worse. This arm, a little better. You have almost full rotation, but again, you're smashing into some dino bits. You can rotate around them, but not without feeling like you're going to break the toy. So, again, this is pretty much the full range of rotation that you're going to be getting. He does have a bit of extra articulation here due to transformation, but again, it looks pretty unnatural, so it's not something you're going to be using frequently. There is some articulation in the upper chest region, but due to the transformation, the tail, the head, and the two side panels, you're not going to be using it much in any kind of posing. The legs barely move back. They could, but again, tail, side panels, head, they do move forward, and they do move out, so that's very nice. They do have minimal knee bend, and then a secondary knee bend for transformation, and both toe and heel tilt. These up here will swivel around, and these bend in and out. And I guess technically this is a point of articulation, although I don't know what you're going to do with it. Ah, yes, and it also bends here. All in all, I think this is a great figure. I sprung a little more for it, but I think it was worth it. Alright, thank you for watching.